They didn't have time to be sitting around in cafes in Vienna pondering these complex mental abstractions. They were not mentally stimulating themselves or mentally masturbating about things that had nothing to do with their lives. They were busy actually living life. So,
freakiness is a part of life. Original Barman along with the two bad, wicked youths of rap. Not a mercy, whoa.
What's the business? Talk paper when I'm riding by. They know it's drizzle, he the truth off the east side. I know who ain't got my money because they ducking high. I grind for me and mines, I got the green light. I got to get it how I live it, that means front line. I got them zips, I got that soft, I got that hard white. I got that green.
You may say, Gene, hang on. You're saying Rousseau revived Platonism and all the naturalists were Platonists and like Milton and all these other guys were Platonists. Well, hang on. The Greek East, Orthodoxy, uses Platonic metaphysics, or at least the language of it. They use Neoplatonism. Why didn't they suffer? Excellent question, dear viewer. The reason the East never fell is because even though they adopted these philosophical ideas into the religion, Orthodoxy was such a dogmatic and strict interpretation of Christianity that you could never actually go above and beyond what was being talked about in council. So whatever philosophical language was used, it was only used because that's how you describe God, not because this is a way to naturally know everything. They didn't really believe in natural law and natural reason in the first place. So because of that, and because the Orthodox emphasize mysticism, both the Orientals, even the Nestorian Church, and the Eastern Orthodox all emphasize mysticism, there was no desire to have to know everything in the universe. They didn't want to crack the code. That's why the East doesn't even use the word transubstantiation. We don't care how it becomes the body and blood. It just does. Why? Because God said it does. Okay, how did you prove that? Well, we have the metaphysics of the church. That's it. Okay, but how does the blood become? Well, we don't care. But how does the body turn into? We don't care. We don't care. We don't have to know everything. That's the important part. Where the West said we need to have a defined legal term for exactly how the bread turns into flesh. The East said we don't care. It does because it does. That's it. And you may say, well, it's a non-answer. But that's the whole point of Orthodoxy. It's not a suppositional religion. Now, we can debate people and say, yeah, our path is better than yours. We prove the truth that way, but truth is not just something that God says is true. It's embodied by God. So Christ is the truth. That's it. So we don't need to appeal to an outside truth. There's no, here's the religion, and then outside, here's the natural reason, and we have to make these two go together. Orthodoxy doesn't believe in that. Neither do the Orientals, for the most part, or the Nestorian Church. So that's why it never fell. For those two reasons, they never went above and beyond what the philosophy was. Now, you'll find some exceptions to that. As the secularism was palpably strong in the West, people in Central Europe would do the very same. Central Europe was the bridge between both. So a lot of people would get influenced by these ideas, but that really doesn't come to its true fruition until shortly before World War I. So for 90% of history, the Orthodox East was really not having to deal with the kind of philosophical, social anxiety that the West was. That's why I would say, well, if you're saying all this Platonism stuff causes this, yeah, because the West had to know everything. The East didn't need to know everything. They're comfortable just knowing what God gave to us and focusing on religion and spirituality, not dogmatically describing everything that occurs in existence. So that's why I think that those things were different. Now you say, whoa, hang on. The East did have atheism. It had communism. Yeah, but communism actually impacted the East in a way that I guess was less corrosive than what happened in the West. It's not just because commerce is bad, even though Rousseau was correct about that. The soul of the West had to know everything. And so they slowly chipped away at the Christian religion, and they deconstructed it philosophically. So there wasn't really an option to be a true Christian in many parts of the world, many regions of the West, especially France, because they deconstructed and they hated it. Whereas in the East, when communism came, it was so fast, the majority of the Russian Empire was still Orthodox when it happened. So they were forced not to be religious just by brute force. That was it. They never deconstructed Christ into becoming an atheist version of Christ. There was never a secular, romantic, Renaissance version of Christ. There was just the Christ of the Bible and of the church. That was it. Then when communism came, okay, now you don't have Christ. Oh, that was it. But there was no deconstruction of him. So in a way, communism, filthy as it was, turned out to be a little better for the East than what happened in the West, at least spiritually. Because you either had Christ or you didn't. There wasn't a fake Christ. There was nothing, communist atheism, authoritarianism, or there was religion, orthodoxy. Those are the only options. That's why the East fared better. The East was also under the domain of the Ottomans, which, again, bad as it was, that captivity taught Orthodox a lesson, and it preserved their sovereignty of the spirit. So they patriotically fought for their nation, they patriotically, zealously fought for their religion, and they defended it at all costs. They didn't have time to be sitting around in cafes in Vienna pondering these complex mental abstractions. They were not mentally stimulating themselves or mentally masturbating about things that had nothing to do with their lives. They were busy actually living life. So that is my explanation for why the East, despite being Christian and having Platonic similarities here and there, did not have the issues that the West did.